So now here we're going to talk about the sutures. The first suture is going to be the coronal suture, and this separates the frontal bone from the parietal bone. The coronal suture can be found right here. The next one is the sagittal suture, and this suture joins two parietal bones together. The sagittal suture is going to be right here. Next one is the lambdoid suture, and this connects the parietal bone with the occipital bone. And that is going to be back here. The next one is the squamous suture, and the squamous suture is going to be found right about here on the side. And this suture forms the joint of the skull between the squamous part of the temporal bone and the inferior aspect of the parietal bone. The next one we're going to talk about are the facial bones. And with the facial bones, you're going to start off with the maxilla, and the maxilla is going to be right here. The nasal bone is going to be here. And for the zygomatic bone, it is formed by the zygomatic process of the temporal bone and the temporal process of the zygomatic bone. And it's going to be right about here. The next one we're going to talk about is the ethmoid bone. It's going to be somewhere in here. For the vomer bone, the two bones that form the bony nasal septum are going to be the vomer and the ethmoid. And for the vomer bone, it's going to be in here. And the inferior nasal concha. The inferior nasal concha is going to be just right above the vomer bone, but a little bit to the side. And it is considered a bony structure by itself, sitting on the nasal septum, and it separates the two nasal cavities. And the next one we're going to talk about is the mandible. So the mandible, for the body part of it, it's going to be all across, bottom. The mandibular angle would be pretty much like where it starts to have a jaw, okay? And the ramus of the mandible is going to be right about here. The mandibular condyle is going to be this part. The mandibular notch is going to be this part right here. And the coronoid process is going to be this part right here.